Hell yeah. Wyatt begins in like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yo! Welcome to Wyatt. And I'm your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans. Grrr, woof, goddammit, woof, 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 and arf. Hey, to all my YouTubers out there, if you like what you hear, if you like what you see, just click that subscribe button at the bottom of your screen. Just click it, click it, click it. I loves to click it. Yeah. Well, let me tell you something. That woke you up. Today's Wyatt is part 2 of my special series of depression in Black gay SGL, same gender loving men. And our very, very special guest is Mr. Mark Tuggle. Mark is an educator, a filmmaker, an activist, and he has this brand new, very important book on Black gay SGL depression. And as we all know, that is a serious, crucial, societal health issue that we need to unpack. So let's just get it on. Wyatt, welcome is Mr. Mark Tuggle. Talk at me. How the hell are you?
Peace and blessings, Wyatt. Honored to be here. Thank you.
Great, my pleasure. First of all, I want to thank you for stopping by, Wyatt. And let me first say that you are one hell of an overachiever. I mean, you're an educator, an activist, a filmmaker, a playwright, a poet. Well, let me tell you something. Man, look, I want to be just like you when I grow up. So if you would, to start us off, just tell us a little bit about these achievements.
About my achievements?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, when I was in college, I went to the University of Illinois in Chicago, and I stumbled across Another Country by James Baldwin.
Right.
I couldn't stop reading it.
Mm-hmm.
And he inspired me to become a writer.
Wonderful.
I had never heard of James Baldwin before I was 20 years old.
Wow. Okay.
Because when I was a little boy, I went to private school in Chicago, Southside Chicago, where I was born and raised. And I was told, if you want to keep something from a Black person, put it in a book.
Very interesting.
So that sent me to the library.
Absolutely.
And I'm fascinated with the written word. I love to read. My mother's a voracious reader. I like, different mediums, different disciplines. And when I read James Baldwin, something in my spirit says, become a writer. And that kind of led me slowly on a journey of writing poetry, essays, articles. As you said, I've written a play, I've written a screenplay, and then being published a few times. Not making a lot of money, not becoming rich and famous, but just learning how to express myself in a creative way and cultivate, my God-given talent. Because I just love the written word, what you can do with it. And there's so many other writers, but he was the first person that touched my spirit. That's how I got started.
Well, he was a good one for that. That's amazing. And I mean, I believe you've been published in a lot of various print and online media as well.
I have. And, a friend of mine told me, he said, Mark, what you have is a hobby. He said, because we used to meet in my apartment once a month and we would compare each other's writing, critique each other and stuff. So it was like a workshop.
Right.
But he said, until you get paid, you're not a writer. You have a
Absolutely.
Hobby. And it hurt my feelings, but he was right. Because this is America. This is America as a capitalist society, and that's how people are treated.
You're absolutely right. When aspiring writers, authors come to me for advice, one of the first things I ask them is this going to be a hobby or are you writing to sell something? I mean, because it's just two different worlds there. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I got published and got paid for it was in 2003. And I had my own, thank you. I had my own column in Paz magazine.
Wonderful. Oh,
Yeah, I was
wow.
diagnosed HIV positive 28 years ago. And through God's grace and mercy, I'm still here, 62 years old. And they paid me $1 per word. So, of course, I wanted to write a 10,000 word essay. But they wasn't having it. They said 700 words. I was like, okay, let me get off my ego. Because that was the first thing that came to my mind. I'm going to write a 10,000 word essay and get paid,
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was the first time I got paid to write. It was almost 20 years ago.
Actually, man, that was a good amount, particularly, and you said 2002, right?
2003.
2003, yeah. So you did well. Well, like I said, man, I want to be just like you when I grow up.
Thank
now, because the emphasis of today's Wyatt is about depression and Black, gay, same gender loving men, I want to focus on your critical book that's upcoming, and it's titled Cultural Silence and Wounded Souls. Black Men Speak About Mental Health. Now, man, we're going to do a deep dive into it a little bit later, but for right now, give us the synopsis of that book.
The synopsis. Well, I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression in February of 95.
Oh, okay.
I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and moderate depression. At the time, I was seeing a holistic health practitioner, and we never had a conversation about it. So it didn't seem real to me. It was just words on a paper. And I never talked about it for years. I never talked about how anxiety and depression impacted, my sense of esteem, my sense of value, my sense of wealth, the way I express myself, the way I cope with conflict, and how do I handle stress, adversity, disappointment. I just never really had any type of relationship with it until I started having some health issues with my back and my hip and my shoulder. And I started to notice that more and more Black men publicly were starting to talk about mental health and mental illness in the last maybe 10 years or so, because it's still very taboo in our community.
Right.
And about three years ago, God put this on my spirit to be of service to humanity, because I've always wanted to make a difference in the lives of young men of African descent. That's something that's very deep, because I've been a mentor to someone for over 20 years. It's something that's really important to me.
Absolutely.
So I started reaching out to guys and asked them what they like to write, and I got a lot of indifference, a lot of rejection, because they don't know me. My name is not LeBron James. So I go into your DM on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and nobody would say anything for like a whole year. And I started to feel really discouraged and despondent and just uncertain. But, through the spirit of perseverance and courage, here I am, with this book. But I've had some dark moments in my life, with this journey, mental health. I don't take medication. That's a spiritual choice for me. Medication is not for everybody. I was in therapy on and off for about 10 years. And, therapy was something that was suggested to me by a friend. I thought therapy was for rich, crazy white people.
A lot of Black people do. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but, I had a friend and I was attracted to her spirit and just what she had been through in her life. And so I took her suggestion and I started going to therapy and talking about the little boy on the inside.
Yeah.
All the trauma, the abuse, the verbal abuse, the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, just feeling inadequate, feeling inferior, feeling invisible, feeling unloved, unworthy, betrayed, disappointed, feeling scared, feeling alone, feeling not heard, not seen, having all these feelings and never having a safe space to speak my truth. Well, and so therapy gave me that space.
Well, you know what? I'm glad it did. I've gone through the whole therapy thing as well, and we'll talk about that later. And we're going to really get into this book because I'm telling you, everyone, it's critical. It is much needed. So we're going to get into that. But for right now, at this minute, I want to take you through the quarters of time, my brother, so that our audience can learn all about your backstory. Because you know what? Inquiring minds want to know.
Okay. Well,
Because
my backstory is my black story.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
I was born August 6, 1960.
Okay.
Saturday morning, 8:35, Michael Reese Hospital in the South Side of Chicago.
Ah, okay.
My parents were married for 30 years. I got 3 brothers and 3 sisters.
Okay.
I'm the 5th out of 7. And I grew up, I went to private school from age 3 to age 9.
Oh.
And so during those years, I was socially isolated.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel like a part of. I was an honor roll student, perfect attendance. People thought I wanted to be white. Or they said you speak proper and all that kind of stuff. It was very damaging to my spirit. It hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand. It was confusing because these were like black kids in my neighborhood telling me I don't want to be white. I want to be right. but I don't want to be white.
But you don't want to be white.
I don't want to be white, but I was a good student and I valued education, but it was not affirmed and it made me feel very alone.
Well, you know what? I went through a similar trajectory situation and I would complain to my mom about it. She was really, for education. She says, well, look, be white as long as you get your education. Don't worry about those people. So I totally get it. I get it.
It was difficult, growing up. And then, learning that I like boys the way boys like girls.
Oh.
I didn't know how to deal with that energy on the inside.
Right.
I didn't know how to express affection or intimacy. Right. I didn't know how to be transparent. I didn't know how to be vulnerable. I didn't know how to take off the mask that Paul Laurence Dunbar writes about, and I just felt like there was nobody like me, completely self-absorbed. I'm a Leo. I don't think it's all about me. I think it's only about me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I do. I've dated Leo. Look, my brother, I've dated some Leo men, and that's a similar thread or theme. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I never met a mirror I didn't like.
Okay.
And it's interesting because I was attracted to James Baldwin. James Baldwin was a Leo.
That I didn't know.
Yeah, he was born August the 2nd. I'm born August the 6th. So,
Oh, okay. Well, look, I have to ask you this question. I ask my guests this question, every one of them, because it makes me chuckle. It makes me understand you as an adult. What were you like as a little boy, a little nipper? Give us like 3 characteristics, qualities, traits that best describe Mark.
As a little boy?
Yep.
Inquisitive. Playful.
Mm-hmm.
And naive.
Naive. Why? That's interesting.
Because I thought if you were nice to me, you were my friend.
Oh.
I remember when I was 5 years old and my mother took me to school and we were walking down the street. My mother had me dressed in like black and white vest, the tie, the matching shorts. I was fly. You know what I mean? And so this white woman comes to me and she says, wow, your son is so handsome.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought in order to get people to like me, I have to dress a certain way.
Uh-huh. Right.
That can lead to bankruptcy.
Yeah, very easily. Yeah. Yeah.
15 credit cards. You know what I mean?
15. We're talking 20. But I get you.
Trying to please people.
Yeah.
The image.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know it until I got older and started to do some self-inventory.
Oh, boy. You know what? I went through a similar thing. I had to have therapy because of it, trying to please folks and not pleasing yourself first. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. Wait a minute. You're also a contemporary descendant of enslaved Africans, correct?
Yeah. That's in my bio.
I just wanted to point that out.
I mean, huh?
I just wanted to point that out.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that's important because, we have a lineage.
Right.
That no one else has.
Absolutely.
It's part of the reason why I titled the book Cultural Silence, because culturally, racialized males have not felt safe to speak truth about how they feel on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And so, on the auction block, we were silent. And then after Reconstruction, we were silent. And then you have Jim Crow, and you have the Civil Rights Movement, and you have Reaganomics, and crack, and AIDS. And even in 2023, it's not natural for Black men to say, I feel hurt.
Right.
It's not natural. Now, we can say, I feel angry or pissed off. Or we'll say, I felt some type of way. That's the new thing, right? But what does that mean? Like, how do you feel? Type of way is not an emotion. It's a mask. It's a cultural mask. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't serve us.
You're absolutely right. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later. I'm just a strong advocate, proponent of expressing yourself effectively and openly and honestly. And sometimes men have a problem with that. And I think that's also part of Black culture as a whole. Keep stuff in and not really talking about it.
I agree. The first time I had a Black male teacher, I was in 7th grade. Mm-hmm. And it was a history class. And we had to read this 800-page U.S. history book.
Oh.
Right?
Wow.
One chapter on Black history, Harriet Tubman, and Dr. King.
That was it.
So I asked my teacher, I said, why are these the only 2 people in this chapter? He said, Mark, go sit down. You asked too many questions.
Uh-huh. It was
Black male teachers silencing me. Mm-hmm. He's an adult figure, authority figure. So it made me feel resentful towards authority because I'm not feeling valued or respected or heard.
It's a tradition. It's a habit. It's a tradition that is so hard to break. Okay, let's move into depression. Black people in depression, particularly Black gay SGL men. A few years ago, I wrote a 3-part series on depression in Black SGL men for the Huffington Post. And through my research, I found that depression has a peculiar effect and a profound impact on Black gay men. And in my last show, I had Antoine Craigwell on. He is the founder of Depressed Black Gay Men. And he said, and I quote, the biggest contributors to depression in Black gay men are issues around sex, sexuality, and sexual identity, the role of the church, contracting HIV, being out as a Black gay man, and sexual abuse. So, Mark, give me your thoughts on that. Let's unpack that a little bit.
I watched that interview. It was fascinating. And
thank you.
I self-identify as same-gender loving. So my identity is important to Mark. So I can't speak for Black gay men. I can speak about my personal experience.
Right.
And I can speak about the people that I've talked to or people that I've read about. And depression amongst same-gender loving men of African descent encompasses some of those things that you mentioned, but it also entails patriarchy and privilege and power, white supremacy, capitalism, and just feeling less than a man. Because for centuries, even still to this day, somebody will call us a boy. And so our manhood, we have manhood anxiety. We've never been allowed to be a man. Most SGL men that I know don't feel respected as a man.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
So some people have chosen to pursue their sexuality more than their masculinity. And I'm not saying that's bad or wrong, but when I woke up this morning, God gave me a whole person. And so I don't leave one behind and take the other one to Trader Joe's or Whole Foods. You're going to get all of me. Like Beyonce, warts and all. You know what I mean? So in terms of same-gender loving men and of African descent, in terms of depression, sexuality plays a huge role, but it's not the most important contributor. There's so many factors that people have to deal with. And Antoine was right in terms of the early childhood sexual trauma. God, you mentioned a whole bunch of things I can't remember right now. I got CRS. I can't remember shit. So
You're doing good. You're doing good.
Okay. But he mentioned that. I'm telling you, racism plays a big part.
Oh, yeah.
All the microaggressions that we get at work and school, at the neighborhood. You know what I mean? The way we dress. Everybody wants to be black until the police come. You know what I'm saying? So it's like our culture is co-opted, right?
All the time.
All the time. Now it's cool to be us.
I
right?
know. Listen, rock and roll was black music.
Yes.
They just tweaked it. Big Mama Thornton. Elvis ripped her off. Elvis ripped off black music. Did a little tweak, and it became rock and roll. It became acceptable. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying, and it really
the Beatles ripped off Little Richard,
right, and it pisses me off.
Yeah. But again, in terms of the depression, though, Wyatt,
right?
Iyanla Vanzant says depression is anger turned inward.
Yes.
So being angry about my humanity and my manhood and my sexuality can lead to depression when I don't feel valued for my humanity and my manhood and my sexuality. People make assumptions all the time about like my voice. I have a kind of soft voice, and I got called a fag and a sissy a lot. Yeah. And it just made me shrink, and that led to depression because I was enraged because I was hurt.
Words hurt.
But I didn't know any other black men saying out loud, I feel hurt. I didn't have an emotional vocabulary when I was a child, as a young adult. I didn't have the language to say I feel insecure. I feel unappreciated. I feel disrespected. I feel undermined. I didn't have a language. And so depression is not something, I was diagnosed clinically, but when I look back at my life and the things that I've undergone, the things I've encountered, the things I've endured, I can see how depression played a role along the way, but there was no clinical diagnosis and there was no other professional saying, Mark, this is something you ought to take a look at.
Well, let's drill down in your particular experience with anxiety and depression, and then we're going to do a real deep dive into your upcoming book.
Well, Deepak Chopra says anxiety is the inability to dwell in the present moment. So anxiety can be something that causes me fear, the fear of the unknown. So like fear is the anticipation of violence. So when I'm feeling anxiety, I'm feeling nervous, I'm feeling worried, I'm feeling uncomfortable, my hands start to get sweaty, my heart's palpitating, my body is shaking, and I'm just really uncomfortable.
Okay.
And all that trauma that I've been through as a kid, never talking about until I got older, especially being in therapy, there's a lot of anxiety in my life. Just walking out the door, when I was 9 years old, I got beat up by a bunch of black boys. They beat me up with bottles and bricks. I was in a pool of blood. I got on the bus. I went home. I crawled into my mother's bed. I couldn't remember what day it was, what week, what month. I couldn't remember anything. It was traumatic. And I noticed that as I got older, when I would see a bunch of black boys gathered together, I would cross the street. Because of the anxiety, the trauma, right? I'm still living out the trauma, the emotional reaction to the event that happened decades ago. And I'm afraid they're going to hurt me.
Of course.
So I walk across the street or I don't speak to them. And I had to learn how to deal with that. And if I don't talk about it, how can I take a look at what I don't talk about? How can I change what I won't admit to? And so there's so much on the inside that I have to navigate and sort through and figure out. And, you know, it's a journey, Wyatt. It's a journey.
Mark, it is a journey because I've gone through depression most of my life as well. And I am a firm believer in putting your ass on the couch and seeing a therapist. And I mean, it might not work for everyone, but this is what I believe. And then you have too many Black people who say, well, I'm going to my minister. And I say to them, unless that minister has a degree in psychology or psychiatry, he is not going to be able to help you the way you need to be helped, because God put knowledge into people to help other people. You know, so I get it. I mean, because, yeah.
How many people do we talk to who are not behavioral psychologists, who are not cultural anthropologists? They're not life coaches. They're not mental health professionals.
Right.
And we talk to them, they got more issues than we do. You know what I mean?
They do. True.
And so it's kind of hard to partner with somebody who gets you, who gets all of you, right? So if you're my therapist, we just can't talk about white supremacy. We got to talk about anti-homosexual bias.
Uh-huh.
We got to talk about growing older and wondering, will I ever find Mr. Right and not Mr. Right now? I mean, there's a lot to unravel when it comes to having a therapist talk about who you are, because there's so much to us as men, as Black men, same-loving men, however we identify ourselves. And a lot of times we don't get that. We just get a piece here and a piece there, because even the therapist is uncomfortable.
Yeah. I also say to people that you have to be very proactive with your mental and emotional and your physical health. And regarding the mental and emotional pieces, sometimes you have to go through various shrinks, psychologists, psychiatrists, whatever you want to call them, before you find that fit, and you can't give up. You have to keep going through the process. And that's what I had to do. Because, for example, when I first came out, I was having a very, very difficult time with it. And I was in an abusive relationship as well. So I had to go through this whole convoluted process of finding the right person for me. And believe it or not, it was this Jewish lady named Anne who saved my life. You know, wow.
I can identify because my therapist, the first therapist, was 26.
Wow.
And a female, and from Bosnia. Like, we were just so culturally and genderly so disparate, but she modeled compassion, empathy, kindness, understanding, tolerance. My needs were being met. And sometimes we don't get our needs met because we're so caught up in what we want.
I couldn't have said it any better. Okay, now let's get into that great book of yours. First of all, give us the title, because it's a long title. And I want you to, after you give us the title, there's got to be significance behind that title. So let's start with that. Yes, show that book, boy.
This is a rough draft. It's called Cultural Silence and Wounded Souls. Black Men Speak About Mental Health.
Okay.
When our ancestors were enslaved, some of them tried to escape the plantation.
Yeah.
Their desire to escape the plantation was considered a mental illness, and it was called drapetomania.
Yes, I've read about that.
Samuel Cartwright, the white supremacist. And he used Christian scripture to justify his racist behavior. Right. So this goes all the way back. Dr. Joy Degree writes about post-traumatic slave disorder, right? So mental health and mental illness didn't start 10 years ago.
Right.
So we have that whole history of our ancestral DNA. So that's why I called it cultural silence, because as men, and again, we weren't considered men. In some places, we still are considered boy. We have always been silent about our feelings, our thoughts, our beliefs. And wounded souls, I believe we are wounded and we need to heal. And Deepak Chopra says healing is the natural tendency to restore balance when it is lost. So as you mentioned, emotional, physical, mental, that we need some balance in our life. I know I need balance in my life.
Me too.
Right?
Me too.
Body, mind, and spirit.
Right.
So that's the genesis of the title, And there's 30 different men, all walks of life, advocates, clinicians, educators, filmmakers, journalists, lawyers, musicians, rappers, and they write either about their personal experience with mental health and mental illness or their professional views. And that's the balance that I wanted. I want the personal and the professional.
Well, as Mr. Spock from Star Trek would say, this is truly fascinating. Okay, well, Mark, what was your pitch to these men, these 30 men? How did you get them to open up, and talk about their feelings?
Well, I have a website, www.culturesilencewooundedSouls.com.
Okay.
And I would most of these men I've never seen before, Wyatt. Thank God for technology, right? I would just go into their DM and I would say, my name is Mark Tuggle. I'm a freelance writer in the village of Harlem, and I'm editing a book on Black men and mental health. Would you like to contribute? Kept it real simple. And they wanted more information. I would give them my phone number. I didn't have a lot of telephone conversations because, we live in a digital world and people are less likely to pick up the phone than they did 25 years ago. That's just a reality. It's not my opinion. That's a fact. So I send them the website. And on the website, you have a media page, you have a resources page. So on the resources page, which is also in the book, you got books to read, podcasts like yours. You have websites, you have hashtags, helplines, a lot of resources that people can access like right now, And then we just started talking back and forth, and then they would send me their first draft, and I would edit it, and we go back and forth, and we would agree on something, and 15 words was the limit.
Okay.
And we got it done, and I got 30 guys who I hold near and dear to my heart who were gracious enough to put this together. I'm just an editor. I'm the conduit. I'm the instrument. I'm the vessel that God is using to tell their stories, because a lot of times we don't get to tell our story in our own language, in our own words, because we have to do with the white gaze, Gaze, right? Because you get on television, you got the commercials, advertising, and then you get on media, everything gets edited and watered down, and before you know it, I help you goes, I hate you. We just you can take one word out of context and shift the whole paradigm. So they're telling their stories in their own voices, and that's powerful.
So these stories are uncensored, direct, in your face.
Unplugged. Black men unplugged.
Without naming any names, was there one story in particular that was the most poignant, that really grabbed your heartstrings?
Yes, there was one person who identified an attempted suicide as a form of self-love.
Oh my God.
Which is a radical idea.
Wow.
Right? And what I love is that I let them tell their story, Wyatt. Right? And I learned that from Toni Morrison as an editor. They tell their story. I'm just there to be of service to the writer. Right? And so it wasn't for me to take that out, or because I'm afraid somebody's going to be uncomfortable. They have to tell their story. I never heard that before. Right?
Yeah.
Because people have all kinds of opinions about suicide or suicide ideation. We've lost some people along the way who have died by suicide, not committed suicide, because when you use the word committed, you are implying that person is somehow immoral, unethical, less than human. So I would say committed, so that they died by suicide. And this person felt like it was a form of self-love.
But he never did it. Something
No.
prevented him from taking that final step.
Right.
Thank God for that.
Right. And this person wasn't the only person who attempted suicide in their journey.
Right.
So there's some other people who have talked about that experience and how it shaped them to become, a better husband, better boyfriend, better father, better brother, better neighbor. Mental health can be, I know Kanye West calls it a superpower. Yeah, I don't know about that. But I know for myself, my greatest suffering has led to my deepest compassion. So now I feel something for people that I've never felt before. That's because of the work I'm doing on myself.
That's deep, Mark. That's deep. Wow. Let's talk about stigma, because stigma is like that albatross around your neck that's choking the hell out of you. Stigma plays a part in people, particularly Black people, not getting the help they need, not getting the mental and emotional help they need. So give us your opinion about that.
Well, you're right. You're right. Not getting the help that we need. Stigma did not begin in the Black community.
Right.
And again, this is why I think it's important that we are mindful of patriarchy and power and privilege, and how much white supremacy, the institutional white supremacy, the information that we read, the books that we read, the schools that we go to, how we learn, the power of image. Like, images are so powerful, right? So stigma is normally rooted in shame and silence, which can lead to suffering. And again, who wants to talk about their suffering? Yeah. Cultural silence, right? It's not a pleasant endeavor. And then who's going to listen without judgment? How many of us have that dynamic in our lives where we can sit down? And we used to sit down with grandma, but now we got grandmothers who are 40 years old, right?
Yeah.
So culturally, it's a different dynamic for people today. Some people, like I said, they go to their pastor, but their pastor is anti-homosexual.
Oh, yeah.
So religion can be a barrier to healing, in my opinion, depending upon the type of faith that you believe in and how you're trying to get service to your heart, right? Because I need ministering to my heart. I can read a book, but can you minister to my heart? Can you awaken my mind so my spirit can flow and I can be free? And that stigma is so powerful because we grew up on the plantation. Not say grow up, but we come from our ancestral legacy where we were sold and lynched and castrated and brutalized and demonized. And so we have that whole history in our DNA. And so a lot of us were taught that we were crazy or that we were weak. Now they use the word soft, right? So as a little boy, when I say I'm hurt, I get feminized.
Yeah.
So not only am I dealing with my feelings, I'm dealing with your perception of my gender. And women, in my opinion, have co-opted the term gender. That's another podcast.
Okay.
So, it's really difficult. Stigma is powerful.
Very.
But you and I can break it by having this dialogue.
Exactly. I mean, again, I'm a proponent and advocate of open, honest, effective communication. And I've just found that men just have such an issue with it. And I don't mean to generalize. I'm just really telling the truth. We just have these barriers that prevent us from opening up and really sharing feelings. Because, for example, if I'm dating a guy and he's not communicative, I would say, look, I am not Karnak. I can't read your fucking mind. You got to tell me what you want and what you need, because if you do, you very well may get it. But if you don't, you ain't gonna get it.
I can identify because I don't like being a spiritual dentist, you know,
Right. I like
trying to
that.
pull stuff out of you. Like I'm 62 years old, Wyatt. I ain't got time for that. If you haven't worked on your daddy issues, we are not a fit.
Right.
Yeah. So stigma is something that we all have to deal with on some level, I think, in my opinion. And it is unique to Black men because there's something unique about Black male pain.
Yeah.
You know? So, for example, from 2015 to 2019, the police in the United States killed 50 Black women. 50, okay. Right? One is too many, right?
That's true.
During that same time period, the police killed over 1,400 Black men. It became normalized. We become desensitized. Mm-hmm. So you see one Black male death, and an hour later there's another guy being shot, and another guy being shot. I mean, there's only so much trauma we can take, and we don't talk about it, we don't process it, we don't grieve. Like Kendrick Lamar says, I grieve different, right? Mm-hmm. The way we grieve can be ceremonial, but is it emotional? And stigma plays a role in that. But like you said, open and honest communication can like lay the foundation to letting those stigmas go a day at a time. But it's a journey. We've been here for a long time, so we got more and more work to do on ourselves in our community.
Well, Mark, give us some solutions. What can we do? You know, we talked about psychiatric, psychological therapy, counseling. What else can we do so that we can be emotionally and mentally healthy and feel better about ourselves? And you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do. I think exercise is really important, okay. You know, because it's one thing to exercise the mind and get a PhD. But if I got diabetes and hypertension and so forth and so on, you know, so exercise is important. Nutrition, you know, the foods that we eat, what we drink is important. I think it's important. Prayer, meditation, yoga, acupuncture. I think journaling is very healing. Even if it's for 15 minutes, just write down, I feel, and make that. There's a spiritual law that says if you do the same thing for 21 days, it becomes a habit.
Okay.
So if you journal, it's been very helpful to me. That's important. Hanging out with kids, because, you know, kids and older people will tell you the truth, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not, you got boogers in your nose, you know, your breath stink. They're going to tell you that. That's what they do. So you hang around kids and remember what it's like for you to be a little boy. Right? Yeah. Nature can be very therapeutic. You know, I love the water. I live in Harlem, 2 blocks away from Central Park, sit on the bench, meditate. I see the ducks. I see the water. Very healing. Going on a vacation by yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
I like doing that.
By yourself.
I like that.
And don't tell the whole world. Don't get on Facebook and let everybody know where you're going. Just go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, because you have to, you come in this world by yourself, you're leaving by yourself, you have got to like yourself and be comfortable with yourself. And I strongly believe in taking vacations by yourself. You meditate, you think, you get closer to yourself, you figure shit out.
Take yourself on a date, right?
Yeah.
Set a day, a time and a place, and you wear what you want to wear, right? And you show up for yourself.
Nice.
That's what I've learned to do. And because I like vegetarian food, organic food. I was raised on grease, sugar, pork, and chocolate, but that doesn't work for me anymore. I'm still the sugar thing. I still love chocolate and sugar. I have to get better with that, you know. But I would go to a vegetarian restaurant at 3:00 in the afternoon and just have a wonderful time with Mark.
Mr. Tuggle, give us the name of your book another time, please.
Say it again.
Give us the name of your book again.
Cultural Silence and Wounded Souls. Black men speak about mental health.
Now, why should we purchase the book?
Because we are wounded, and we need to heal. And the stories in the book, even if it's just one story that touches your heart and opens your mind and feeds your spirit, maybe you can use that experience to each one teach one. Mm-hmm. Share with your partner, your neighbor, your brother, your uncle, your cousin, your friend, your coworker, your classmate, and let them know that in the book you have the stories, but you also have the resources. So there's, like I said, there's the helplines you can call, the hashtags you can access on Instagram. There's other books you can read.
Right.
There's podcasts like yours that we can listen and hear the dialogue, right? And there's articles, magazine articles that you can take a look at. There's websites. There are service providers. So there's so much information. This is a community resource.
Uh-huh.
That was my intention, to be a community resource. It's for Black men, yes, but Black men are part of the human family. So maybe my sister has a friend at work who she thinks this could be of use to him. Without calling him any names or getting into his business or without coming for him, because, we like to come for people on the down low. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying nothing, but I think you should take a look.
I
do that.
I hear you.
Yeah. So I think it has value. I really do.
It does have value, a hell of a lot. Do you have a release date for it as of yet, or?
Black History Month 2023.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Give us your website, give us your social media, and give us where we can purchase the book when it comes out.
So the website is www.culturalsilencewoundedsouls, that's one word, culturalsilencewoundedsouls.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Mark J. Judge, J-U-D-G-E, Tuggle, T-U-G-G-L-E. And my intention is to have it published on Amazon.
Okay.
But I feel hesitant about saying it because I haven't done it yet.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I got it.
I don't want Amazon coming for me the way they came for Kyrie Irving. You know what I'm saying? So where's the book out? Because people, they hear it and they go, I don't see it on Amazon. You're phony. You're fraud. So I'm really, I'm trying to protect. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But that's my intention is sometime next month. Okay. Black History Month. Mm-hmm. We started off as Negro History Week by Carter G. Woodson, right? Because he chose February, not because it's the shortest month, because he wanted to commemorate the lives of Frederick Douglass, Abraham Lincoln. That's why he chose February, right? Because our stories were not being told in the institutions around the world. All the contributions we made to the global community, they just have not been told. We have the greatest stories never told.
Well, Mr. Mark Tuggle, I want to thank you for stopping by. Wyatt, this has been electric. It's been enlightening. It's been entertaining. It's been all that and a bag of chips as well.
A bag of chips and a soda pop.
Let's not forget that soda pop, baby.
Don't forget the soda pop and a straw and a napkin. I enjoy it, Wyatt. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I enjoy listening to you. I love your interviewing style.
Thank you.
I love your patience and your discernment and how you let us shine. So thank you for that.
Well, listen, my brother, I want to thank you for taking the time. And you know what? Thank you.
Peace and blessings. Get this book. Cop this book. You got to get this book. Get that book.
So there you have it. You can find the official Wyatt podcast page at WyattEvans.com, the go-to destination for LGBTQ plus news, commentary, features, and entertainment. And WyattEvans.com is visited by over 100 countries on the regular. Yeah, baby. And at WyattEvans.com, you can find my Smoking Hot, Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels, The current installment is Frenzy! Yeah, Frenzy. And Frenzy is like chock full of masculine romance, danger, intrigue, mystery, passion, y'all, and some erotica. You know what I'm saying? And its predecessor is Rage, all at WyattEvans.com. And guess what? I'm just so happy. I'm so happy. Because this spring, the sequel in the Nothing Compares to Bart series of novels will drop. It's called Shattered. I'll say it, Shattered. Yeah, and it's a humdinger. Now, you can follow me, your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans. You can follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. And, my social media is right there, all right there for you to peruse. And, if you want to drop me in line, you can hit me up, at Wyatt. What is it? It's Wyatt on air at gmail.com. I almost forgot. Wyatt on air at gmail.com. So, again, it's right there. You know what I'm saying? So until next time, y'all, woof, goddammit, woof, 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 woof.